Good morning and welcome to your favorite Friday morning podcast, Conversations with Buddy, brought to you by The Rec, way more than a bowling alley. By the way, if you've never been to The Rec, you should come down and learn. It's disguised as a bowling alley, but it's really a ministry. We call that ministry Valor Mentoring, where we mentor men. And anyway, it's a great place to bring your family, your coworkers. It's safe, it's fun, and it's affordable. And today we're going to have a podcast with a guy named Matthew Henderson. He's a good friend and a great guest. And welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to be here, man. It's been a while since we've connected.
It has.
We've connected over the years over coffee.
We have.
It's been probably pre-COVID.
For coffee? Yeah, it's been a while since we had coffee together.
I think like at French Press sometime early morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can go back to that. I can pull out the memory banks.
I totally pull out the memory banks. Well, hey, we're going to have a great show today. We're going to talk, just go deep and really figure out what's on your heart, on your mind, and what makes you tick.
Okay.
You scared?
Well, a little bit. No, I'm fine. I'm good.
All right, good. Well, hey, let me do an intro of you real quick. Make sure people know who you are, Matthew. And all right, so here's what you sent me. And I didn't know this, by the way. You turned 50 in February. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I probably did know. I probably wish you happy birthday on Facebook.
You probably did.
Okay, so 50. And we'll talk about that. What did 50 mean to you? We'll get there in a moment. But
Perfect.
I'll just kind of load you with a question. You've been married for 25 years to Shelley. Definitely your better half, right?
Absolutely my better half.
Shelley, that was for you.
Yeah, for sure.
2 boys, both adults, and that makes you guys empty nesters.
Yes. It's a good time of life.
Wow. Real quick, your boys' names are?
Miles and Campbell.
Ages?
Miles is 22 and Campbell's 19.
Okay. How are you guys already empty nesters? Are they just in college or are they just...
Miles actually lives in Albany. He's married. And Campbell is a freshman at George Fox University.
You married one off already?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Feels amazing, actually.
Right? The quicker the better, man.
Well, and also when you pray for the right one for your son, it's like the most fulfilling thing when that actually happens. So, love it.
Man, that's awesome. You have a Yorkie named Reggie. You live just south of Salem. You co-own a real estate company with your wife. What's the name of the company?
Copper Rock Real Estate.
By the way, I love the name because I think she probably did it because it matches her hair.
Partly, yes, absolutely. She definitely has taken
it's
that
perfect.
on.
It just makes sense.
And we celebrated her 5-year anniversary last night, actually.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, good stuff.
You co-own a solar company that you actually work in called Pure Energy Group. Mm-hmm. You love bow hunting for elk.
Hunting, I don't harvest very much, but yes, hunting.
Hey, I've been there. I've bow hunted for years, and yeah, I went back to rifle hunting. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You love fishing at Diamond Lake. You love Central Oregon. I want to hear more about that. You love working out and believe in the power of fasting. I think our last conversation 5 years ago had to do with fasting.
Absolutely.
I was probably just learning about that, so I want to hear more about that. You say it's hard to consistently practice, but you're doing it. Mm-hmm. You're a huge football fan. Beavers, go Beavs.
Yeah.
St. Anne Christian. Mm-hmm. And then you love leadership podcasts, and you love Jesus, as you know. So this is awesome. Well, let's dive in a little bit and hear more, but let's just start out with being empty nesters. I'm going to start there. We'll back up a little bit, but your boys, you got one married off, one's in college. Did the boys married, did he go to college as well?
He went to LBCC for a couple of years, kind of while he was at home and while he was working at Costco at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he moved out, boy, it's been 2 years now, 2 years this summer.
Yeah.
He actually bought a house in Albany.
Yeah.
He's really a good saver and really responsible.
Good for him.
And he works for me now. He's actually a salesperson at Pure Energy Group.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever.
That is cool. All right. And your younger son, George Fox, what's he studying?
Theology.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You must have done something right.
Well, we like to think so, but
yeah, that's awesome.
And he's on the football team there. He plays football.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's rough, man, playing college football.
It is completely different. You go from being the top dog to the very bottom of the rung.
Yeah.
And you also have a lot of players who, with COVID year or depending on their situation, they play long. So, I mean, sometimes they're 22, 23 years old. By the time they're a senior, you walk in, there's an 18-year-old and everyone's got 4 or 5 years of, muscle building and experience. Yeah, it's a different situation for sure. Well,
good for him though.
Yeah.
It'll toughen him up a little bit.
Absolutely.
And he's a freshman who plays, or is he a redshirt? Was it?
I don't know if they really redshirt much at the Division III level, but they have, what's cool about some of these schools, they have games on Sundays if you can't play on Saturdays, like the JV almost. So
really,
he was able to do that this last year.
I'll be darned.
Get some experience, get some on-field experience. Yeah, it's pretty cool actually.
Man, well, my hat's off to him for playing a collegiate sport. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. He's pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Let's dive back a little bit. Let's go back a few years. Let's talk about like where were you born? A big question I love to ask is how did your parents influence you? Because I know Matthew at 50,
right?
But what was Matthew like growing up, and how'd your parents influence you?
So I was born in Albany, originally, and then we lived in the Jefferson area until we moved to Central Washington in a town called Toppenish. I have some bittersweet memories there. It was interesting to leave everyone down here, all your cousins and things like that. And in our age, buddy, you had first cousins all the time. I spent time with first cousins all the time. They are my best friends. So
I had 30 of them, by the way.
Oh wow!
On my dad's side, my dad had 14 brothers and sisters.
Wow. I know some people out in Silverton who have a lot of cousins like that.
Yeah, scary.
But my dad became a pastor. So we moved to Washington for him to be a pastor up there at a small church. And then we lived there for 8 years, and then he took another job down in Harrisburg after that. So that's where I ended up going to high school. I went to LBCC, decided college was not my thing. I mean, I got an associate's degree that probably took me like 5 years.
Oh, dude, I know.
Yeah. Met my wife on a blind date through my best friend, and I decided I love sales. And so I made sales my career.
Man.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So my parents' influence on me, number one, having a pastor dad and, obviously believers. I mean, we had a lot of things we had to do right. We had to be the examples. So there's pressure being a PK.
PKs are tough, man.
I have 4 brothers, 2 older, 2 younger.
You're right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle. No sisters.
Wow.
There's benefits of that. Like, we'd move to a house and the 2 olders would have to share a room, the 2 youngers would share a room, and I would get my own room. I mean, stuff like that.
Okay, so it worked out.
Middle wasn't so bad.
It wasn't bad.
I don't know if I'm the middle child syndrome, but I do think I'm kind of a mediator. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think the number one thing for me, my parents instilled was faith. And there's times, obviously, that we struggle in our faith, but after, those early 20s and I made some, poor decisions, what have you. My dad looked at me one time after a very strong conversation and said, "You know what's right." And I was instantly convicted. So it's good stuff to have that base and what to go back to when you've kind of, gone away. So.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that. I love asking the question how your parents influenced you, really your mom and your dad, but I love hearing the story about how your dad called you out. Mm-hmm. And you were instantly convicted. We live in a society that's, I don't know the statistics exactly, but it's probably around 40% of kids go to bed at night without a father in the home. Could be more, could be less. But fatherlessness is really it's an epidemic in our society. So one of the reasons why we created Valor Mentoring was to help, like, you can't solve the problem necessarily, but you can help impact it. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty cool. All right. So as you grew up in Harrisburg?
Yeah, Harrisburg's where I ended up. Yeah, from 8th grade on. So yeah.
Okay. So how many kids in your high school group or your high school class?
I graduated with 54, I think.
Okay.
So
big group.
Yeah, I loved it. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay. I don't think I knew that about you. I thought you grew up in Albany and graduated from there.
My wife's the opposite. She went to Churchill down in Eugene, so a much larger school. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so is she a Duck fan then, or
no? She's a Beaver fan, big time.
Okay. How did that all happen?
I think she wanted to be away from just being in Eugene, so she decided to go to Oregon State.
Yeah.
And then she became really involved.
Yeah.
And she actually, for 1 year, and I'm going to out her on this, she was actually the Beaver mascot for 1 year in college.
No kidding.
Yeah.
She was. That's
back when
awesome.
they had, both, Benny and then was a Beatrice.
Yeah.
So yeah, she got to do that. So
No way.
And this year when we went to a football game and they brought Beatrice back out, she was really excited to see that.
That's funny.
So we watched the Civil War. I grew up a platypus. My dad didn't care. He like, hey, anyone from Oregon is great, right? So I grew up a platypus. I'm a huge sports fan.
Yeah.
So we're watching our first Civil War when we're married.
Yeah.
And I think this is like, man, maybe Ken Simonton era. I'm thinking to myself. And I'm rooting for whoever's going to have a better chance at a bowl game or what have you. And she looks at me and she's like, you need to make a decision. You're really rooting
Pick a side, bro.
You're rooting for the Beavers. Or you're not going to be in his house pretty much. So then I became a huge Beaver fan. And ever since, I mean, that's what we do.
It's funny. I think I'm a little bit like you. I was a platypus because I went to Western and we're the Western Wolves. So I had friends that loved the Ducks, but I married into a Beaver family. And so I really had this problem early on. Like, I literally have to pick a jersey. Like, I have to pick a side.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to figure that out. And finally, I'm wearing it loud and proud.
Yeah, you're right.
Man.
We're loud and proud.
So, Beavers.
Yeah, it's tough right now with
I know,
a lot of stuff going on. But
the Pac-2, baby.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Well, dude, I love this journey, how your parents impacted you. Where did you go wrong in high school? Where did Matthew get off the rails and kind of do? And then how? I want to know when you came to faith in Christ, because sometimes our walk isn't always perfect. Would you agree on that?
Absolutely.
And you can still be saved and still sometimes be a prodigal. Is that?
Yeah, I mean that happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's always an interesting question. By the way, some people think you can lose your salvation. But it's like let's say your boys do something bad. Do they all of a sudden become not your kids?
Absolutely not. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. You and I talked about this many years ago, actually.
Oh, yeah,
and I think you're one of the first people, because I won't name any religions or what have you, but we're Christian based. But the churches we attended had a lot more, in my mind, rules.
Yep.
And I think a lot of churches have expanded the way that they take on doctrine over time. But yeah, you're one of the first people who are like, hey, you know what? Once saved, always saved, right? And I'm like, wow, that's a good question. This was years ago when you asked me that. So,
well, just real quick, in the book of John 3, Nicodemus comes to Jesus late at night, and Jesus says you have to be born again. So Nicodemus says, hey, do I enter my mother's womb again and be born again? And it's like, no, you can't do that.
Right.
That's born physically. You have to be born spiritually. So let me ask you a question. Can you be unborn physically?
No.
No. So if you're born spiritually and you've accepted Christ and the Holy Spirit indwells you, how do you become unborn? So that's that whole story in the book of John. I think we can really impact that. That's my belief. And I know people believe you can walk away and lose your salvation.
Yeah.
I believe you can't do anything to save yourself. Jesus did it all.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. So I think going back to where my Christ, I mean, besides, growing up with Bible stories and you believe, I went to youth camps. Excuse me. Used to go to youth camps every year. It was always very impactful. It was a very emotional experience. But then not until, well, I shouldn't say not until, it was 1987 is when I gave my heart to the Lord. And I was baptized on July 25th, 1987.
So real quick, you were
13 years old.
But you'd grown up in the church that whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, a lot of parents might go, well, he grew up in church, so he must be saved. But really, there's a day where you had to decide.
Exactly.
And you remember that day?
I remember it very vividly. And then, so it was actually about a month previous to that. And we were at another, large camp meeting type of church. It was 3 or 4 days over in Idaho, actually. Yeah. And everyone's experience is different. Some people are very emotional. Some people are very non-emotional. But mine was a very emotional time. So, yeah, you hit that. You feel it. Yeah. You believe it. Yeah.
What camp were you at?
Oh, it was a large, once a year, many churches would get together over in Idaho.
Oh, in Idaho, got it.
So it was almost like I wouldn't call it a big tent revival, but it was literally under a big tent. I mean, there was hundreds of people every year who would go, and all mostly from the same denomination. Yeah. And it was kind of a neat time to meet people again, see people from the year before, have a lot of fun, and then just have one particular sermon that just hits you, and it's boom. And we used to do a lot of altar calls too. I don't know if it's not as common as a thing as anymore. And it seems like, when I was a kid, it seemed like they were doing altar calls every week.
Like, keep going up.
Who's coming up? Who's making a decision today?
Yeah.
So,
I grew up in that church too. I never went as a kid growing up. I was 28 when I finally accepted Christ, but I'd always see the same people going up to the altar. Okay, what are you doing? It never made sense to me, but that was, the ones, you could lose your salvation maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, or they just felt like they should pray up there.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's, if God's calling you, go.
Yeah. And then during high school and stuff, I was pretty straight-laced. I didn't do much wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
So Matthew...
It was kind of after high school when early 20s, you do some goofy things sometimes.
Well, we'll get there. We're going to talk about that. I want to hear where Matthew...
I'm not sure I want to tell you. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Okay, what sports did you play in high school? Here's some questions for you. Yeah, what sports? And then where did you go off the rails in your 20s? And then how'd you meet your wife?
Okay.
For 25 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So I played football and basketball in high school. As part of my upbringing, we were actually Sabbatarians. We were to church on Saturday, actually.
Okay.
But not Adventist. And,
So your dad preached that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we did not, so we kept a Jewish calendar as far as sundown, and not, we weren't Jewish by any means. It was but it was interesting. So the Sabbath was very, very sacred as far as we didn't do a lot, but the Sabbath started on Friday night at sundown. So that inhibited my football playing. So I got to play one good year, and I was a good football player, but I decided I wasn't going to play beyond that. So then played a few years of basketball, and I was pretty good. I wasn't anything special. So
yeah,
but I had a good time. It was fine.
Yeah, you're about having a good time, and
yeah, I like the camaraderie. You learn a lot with team, and I really pushed it. So with my sons, I really wanted them to have the ability to do football all they wanted, and football was a big deal to me. And football's hard.
Yeah,
football's very hard. So they both really excelled at that. So
your older son, he didn't play. He didn't continue after high school.
He did not, but he, they won a state title together.
Yeah,
my sons did, which is like a dad's dream come true.
Come on, man.
Yeah, and my oldest son was a captain on the football team and first team All State. And then my youngest son was a captain junior and senior years, and he was first team All State on both sides of the ball his senior year. So
wow,
it was a big deal to me. It was like a dream come true. So what I wasn't able to fulfill, I truly believe God fulfilled that for me, my dream, and some fun stuff later on for my boys. It was really good stuff.
That's so cool.
And then after high school, where I fell off the rails, I think freedom. I think you start to question your parents sometimes. I think we see that a lot. With kids today, especially kids who grew up in the church, a lot of kids lose their way after high school into college. Even though they grow up, they know what they're supposed to be doing, they know the truth. The world is strong, and Satan's strong. Unfortunately, and I wasn't a crazy person, but I just stopped going to church. You start to do more partying here and there. You're really paying attention to a lot of girls, and you just make some poor decisions in life, and you just you're stepping away out of living with God. You know God's there, but you're stepping away, and I think that's where I fell off the rails a little bit.
So when you went to LBCC, what degree did you go for there? Or were you just kind of going just to?
It was business to begin with.
Yeah.
The funny part is I kind of went through this phase where I had my hair really long, and I looked kind of like I was a little bit of a hippie, but I still was very conservative. So we'd be in like these classes, philosophy classes or what have you, and I'd be on one side of the room and someone else would be on one side of the room, and we'd be debating. But I looked like I probably should be on their side. It was kind of funny.
Dude, I got to see some of those pictures, man.
No one wants to see those pictures.
I want to see some of those, man. Matthew with long hair. That's
it's just funny to me, So, and then I'm sorry, where were we?
Just kind of LBC, where you fell off the road, the pathway a little bit.
I went for business, and I ended up with a general studies degree.
Okay.
So,
but you realize college wasn't for you, and I think that's probably the wisest thing you could figure out is rather than go into a bunch of debt.
Yeah, I just really didn't want. I wasn't great at it. I could do it. And I was a good student in high school. I just wasn't applied, and I was thinking business is fine, but what am I going to do with business or what? And I'm not telling anyone they shouldn't go to college. But if you don't have a specific idea of what you might do, you might want to make that decision or have that question about like, hey, how much money am I going to spend to accomplish this, and where will I end up after I'm out of it? So,
and maybe for the kids, I mean, I kind of agree with you. College could be for some people and some people not. Mm-hmm. But maybe for those kids that don't want to go to college, maybe take a gap year and then make a decision after that before you just, okay, I'll go to college and spend $50,000 a year and realize, I really don't like this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
It is. I mean, it's one of those things where we rush kids now, I think. People are made to grow up really fast. And yeah, it's okay. Take a gap year if you need to, work. And then there's trades. I mean, there's a lot of trades out there. Yeah. We'll get to this maybe later, but as part of our company, we're also electrical contractors, and we have apprenticeship programs. So
no kidding.
I'm trying to create some, not just jobs, but some careers, things like that.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
How'd you meet Shelley?
My best friend.
Yeah.
She was his cell phone rep at the time. Back in the day, Cellular One in Albany was kind of a big deal. And she was a cell phone rep for his business. And he said, I want you to meet my best buddy sometime. And she was like, I'm not really into blind dates. But he's like, just one time. So we just got done working out. I don't know when it was, maybe midweek, and she lived pretty close to the gym we were going to, and he's like, hey, just meet us for dinner. So we got introduced, and, I thought that she was pretty and she was cool, but we didn't have like an instant connection. I didn't even get her number. It was kind of maybe it was a rude thing to do, but I wasn't sure. But I do know one thing, she intimidated me because she seemed like she had it together. Like, I was doing fine, but I was still kind of a young 20s guy, and I was, being stupid. I wasn't as mature as I should have been. And she was just put together. She just knew seemed like she knew everybody. She had a good job. She already had her college degree. And I was thinking, boy, I'm going to have to reach for this one, Instead of settling for someone, I'm going to have to reach for this one. So, ironically, about a month later, me and my buddy Travis were driving around, and he left his cell phone. And this is like in the early 90s, or mid 90s. So cell phones weren't that prevalent,
Wow.
And they definitely weren't like iPhones. I mean, anyone listening to this who's older than 20 understands. But he left his phone in my car, and she had called his phone for a work thing. And I answered the phone, and she told me who it was. And I go, oh, I've been meaning to call you. And she's like, for a month? She's like, I'm not having that. There's no way. You weren't going to call me. So, but it kind of spurred some funny stuff. So she was able to go out on another date with me. And we were friends for several months. It was not all romantic. And then it turned into romantic. And we went to church together. And I think we started dating officially like in November, and then we got married the following September.
Wow, so it was a really short...
Yeah, it was not a long engagement.
I really like that you guys found it important to be friends first. Mm-hmm. And whether you meant to or not, we're guys and whatever, but that maybe it was her being strong enough. And Shelley she is very confident.
Yeah.
And
it was her. It was definitely her.
It was definitely her.
Yeah.
But how cool is that?
It's really cool. And then... so 25 years, and then this is what I tell everyone, and I think the older you get, the little more, for me, I'm trying to be more bold in my faith, and I tell a lot of young people, especially who are young marrieds, the one key that we've learned is praying together, and it's 3 times a week, and unless we're separated for some reason, like I'm gone, run business or what have you, we're really good at it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. And we pray together, and I've done some studies, and they've been. I mean, I've looked up some studies, and the divorce rate for people who pray together multiple times a week is like 1 in 1,000. It is so small, and I'll tell you, the intimacy you get with your wife from that level is amazing. I mean, just like and I tell people, it's not like 20, 30 minutes of praying. You are meeting with them, number one, so it's kind of like a date, and it's dedicated time to your spouse. And then you're talking about like, hey, how's work going? What's personal, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, what would you like prayer for? And you say, we usually do one personal and one professional. And then we pray. We pray for our kids and our work and our employees and each other. And that has just been an amazing growth for our marriage. And we didn't do it always. I mean, it's more in the last 5-6 years. So
that's amazing. I think because the divorce rate, even inside the church, is almost as high as it is outside the church. Don't quote me on that,
right,
but I know it's pretty high. But a family who prays together stays together. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying, Matthew?
That's what I'm saying.
Wow, that is intimate too.
Yeah.
That's really encouraging, by the way.
No, I love
it. That if somebody just takes away that piece right there, if you're struggling with your marriage, and marriage is not easy, praying together might be the beginning to change everything.
Absolutely. 100%.
I'm reading a book right now. I'll pull up the quote real quick, see if I can pull it up here. The book is called Sacred Marriage, and the quote is, what if God designed marriage not to make you happy, but to make you holy?
Mm-hmm.
And to really think about that, because we all think, oh, marriage, I get married because I want my wife to fulfill my need, or they marry a guy to fulfill their need. But at the end of the day, I'm flawed. You're flawed.
Absolutely.
They're flawed. So I think we sometimes show up at marriage wanting to be served. What did Jesus say? He didn't come to be served, but to serve.
Exactly. And
anytime I have a problem with my wife, it's because I'm not actually serving her the way I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
And I hate, honestly, it bothers me, that I don't want to. It's too bad. That's the role that we as men that are married get to play. We serve. And it's not easy. It's selfless. Not easy. And my flesh is selfish. So how do you deal with that, Matthew?
Oh, it's so tough. Something we've been doing more recently, and I didn't really ask for this, but I'm really happy about it, is some patterns that I have that might not be positive. My wife will talk to me about those and say, I've noticed this. And for me, it's like, wow, I am so worried about what other people are doing all the time. It's like, that's not even my business. So it's control. I found that the underlying problem I have, even though I don't think I'm a control freak, is I want control over situations instead of giving it up. So that's one thing that's been good is
what's an example of where, if you wanted to share on how you default to control, what would that look like in a situation?
I think my kids especially, like, oh, why are they making that decision, that particular decision? And it might not even be a really negative decision, but I somehow would be giving them instruction or advice they didn't ask for. And it's not because, in my mind, I'm caring about letting them grow as adult men. I'm trying to control what they're doing. Like, oh, I've already been there, so you better not do that. It's like I'm trying to be the control person, and it's not my situation to control. Or if someone even goes, I found myself, even if someone goes on vacation, I'm like, oh, I've heard that's not the right way to do it. I'm thinking, my gosh, what am I worried about? It's not my deal. Go have a good vacation. I shouldn't care about any of that stuff. It's like, go have fun. Tell me how it was at the end. And I'm a happy guy. I'm thinking, why am I wanting to control this stuff? And it's not like ultimately control it, but I'm thinking about it enough to make comments about it. So it is interesting. And I think it's a vice you have to deal with. So.
Yeah. And I know you really well, Matthew. I don't know you as that guy at all. I see you as a loving husband, father, believer. You and I have been really transparent with, life and how we struggle as guys. And I don't know that about you, it's interesting for you to say that because I just don't see that.
And I don't want that. And I think also being a business owner, you have to be somewhat of a control freak. So I think maybe that spurred some of that. But I want to tell you one thing before we go any further.
Yeah.
One thing that's very important, and I tell my kids this, and I'll announce this here because my oldest son, actually, him and his wife are expecting. They're like 12 weeks pregnant.
That is so cool.
I'll be a grandpa, so thank you. But I've told them, and I've told a lot of people who are young with kids especially, and I actually preface it with this. I'm going to give you some unasked for advice. When you have kids and you walk in the door, and I got this from you, buddy. When you walk in the door, who do you kiss first, your kid or your wife? Mm-hmm. And I told you I kissed my kid, and that's the wrong thing to do. This is when they were young. Kiss your wife first. So I've always held on to that ever since then. So I've passed that on, and it's a big deal. So Just wanted to let you know.
It always scares me that people, hey, you said something a year ago. I'm like, uh-oh, what did I say? What stupid thing could I possibly say?
Great impactful moment.
Well, something I learned just in that, I was giving somebody some advice in the last year, and the advice was not received. And somebody in my life made the comment, unsolicited advice is nothing but criticism. I've had to chew on that because if you tell me your problem, the natural thing is I want to fix it. And I have an answer, probably. That's maybe my ego. I don't know. Right? Can you relate to that?
I'm a fixer. And so my wife tells me all the time, and my kids too, it's like, hey, sometimes we just want you to listen. But the whole time they're talking, I'm sitting there going, how do I fix this problem?
Oh, or you already have the answer.
Yeah. I'll follow, and I think it's because I feel like I'm responsible for them. And to a degree I am. But it's at the same time I'm thinking, yeah, why can't I fix this?
But are we? Are we responsible for people?
For my kids and my family, I take it on pretty big. Like I feel like I'm the rock, the umbrella.
Are you the rock?
Well, the umbrella over the family. Not their savior, but I feel like I need to be that rock over the family, the umbrella that protects them.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate that because that's how they see you also.
Right.
Dad, he always shows up. I've learned that prayer is the only thing that really moves the needle, though. It's my ability to get on my knees and pray in the morning every day, and making sure God is on the throne of my life and on their life, and let the chips fall where they may. And something I learned to do with my girls, even now as they get older, it took me a long time to figure this out because I love to give my own opinion. I have an opinion, but that unsolicited advice is criticism. I'm like, hey, I know that you've talked about a problem. Are you open to advice? Because I need their permission. I've learned that if I don't get their permission, I'm not going to give them anything.
Yep.
Because they're not ready to hear whatever it is they're supposed to hear. And the funny thing with kids, I always tell my girls, I love pain. It's my favorite thing. I love pain. Dad, why do you love pain? Because it's the one thing that will help change who you are and what God wants you to be. So I embrace pain in their lives, probably more than my own, but it's funny.
It is funny.
I love raising kids, though.
No, it is incredible. And people have said, do you miss your kids being young? And I'm like, I enjoyed it, but I don't. I love them as adults. I love the interaction. I love it's a cool thing.
So where do you and Shelly go to church today?
Athey Creek.
You guys were at Jefferson Baptist for a while?
We were for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, okay, just change.
Just change, yeah. And I think I think time in life, and also our daughter-in-law, she had originally gone to Athey Creek, and she kind of introduced us to it. And we've enjoyed it. But, I'll tell you a good joke about that.
Tell me.
Okay. So this guy's on a deserted island all by himself for like 20 years. Navy pulls up, they see him, they start asking him questions. They're like, there's 3 caves up on that bluff. What are those caves? He goes, the first cave is my house. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's your home. What's the second cave? Well, that's my church. And you go, what's the third cave? And he goes, well, that's your church I used to go to.
That's funny.
It is funny. It's kind of true. I mean, I haven't been a church hopper as much, but I do think that God sometimes just says, hey, pay attention over here or what have you. And actually it's been good. We've been going to church with my daughter-in-law's parents. They live up in that area, and we've had a connection. We have new friends, and I love it up there. So
yeah, that's funny. Was that a Pastor Brett joke, by the way?
No, it wasn't. I heard that one years ago.
Okay, all right. Brett's always joking about something.
Yeah.
So
no, he is funny. Well,
that's cool. You guys go to the 8:00 service on Sunday morning?
We're going to 10, but now we start going to 8, and you have to get up a little earlier, but it's a good drive up there, and just time spent together. The empty nester thing, it's cool. I thought it would be horrible, but it's great.
Well, we became empty nesters probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and kids are out of college. One got married, yada, yada, yada. And we decided to try a new church just to have a new spark, and we're with you. That's why we saw you at Athey Creek.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw you there. I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
So we go to the 10:00 service. Sometimes we go with some friends on Saturday, just for something different.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of time on the road, so a lot more conversation, which has been good for me and my wife as well. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's the same with you guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. You guys been, just a few months that you've been doing that?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long, really. I mean, I'd probably say the last 5 or 6 months. And then there's a transition. And I also think it's important if you do leave a church or you're not going to one as much, that you are not negative about it.
Not at all.
And I think some people, if they do change churches, they're like, well, I didn't like this over here, or like that over there. And I just think it's not really positively impacting anybody to say the problems or issues you have. So,
yeah,
if you do have them, you know what I mean. But I've seen that happen before. So,
yeah. I still go to JBC breakfast, occasionally.
I just want to make it clear. I love JBC. I love the people there. The leadership I've learned there is unbelievable. Pastor D's leadership class, I've taken it twice. My sons took it with me a couple years ago. It's life-changing.
I always tell people, Pastor D Duke, helped me raise my kids. Mm-hmm. Early on when my kids were really young, I went to his parenting class because he had 8 kids, and I think he's 8.
Yeah, he has 8 kids.
And what I learned from him changed my life. And my kids know Scripture because D said, teach your kids Scripture. And he goes, you could even pay him. So I'd pay my kids $1 a week to learn a Scripture, $5 a week if they could memorize a passage. And so every week, man, their friends would come over. Man, you want to make money? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to D. Duke. I feel the same way. At Salem Heights, we were there for 25 years and our girls still go there. So we still love that church. We just needed, for us, something different.
My nephew goes there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
My nephew knows your girls. So.
Who's your nephew?
Aiden Henderson.
Okay. I don't know if I know. Who's his dad or mom?
Aaron. They live over in Idaho, but.
Okay.
Yeah, he went on his own. He started going on his own.
And how old is he?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he well connected? And
he seems to be.
Okay.
Yeah, he seems to be really well connected.
Yeah.
Good, great kid. He's a apprentice. He's an apprentice, electrical apprentice, and he actually currently lives with us. So,
no kidding.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you are empty nesters.
Well, I know. I say that now. We're empty nesters from our kids, but he lives downstairs. I don't see him that much. It's fine.
He has his own life.
No, it's fine. He's getting ready to buy a house soon. So I was like, you know what? Come be with us after Miles and Campbell moved out. I'm like, come be with us for a little while. It's fine.
Well, talk to me about your business. I know you guys, you and Shelly own your real estate business. You own the solar business. Talk to me about, you and Shelly bought the commercial business. How's that going? What's that like? And then we'll dive into what you're doing on solar.
It's great. I mean, it's interesting. It's been 5 years, and she likes to do commercial real estate mostly.
Yeah.
She loves the people she helps with residential, but commercial's her jam. She's an expert at it.
Yeah.
She just prefers it.
So cool.
Sometimes there's less drama, as you know. Residential can be like, hey, I raised my kids in that house for 35 years. It should be worth this much more than the market value.
Totally.
So stuff like that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Real estate's funny. It's ups and downs. I mean, it is crazy. And she stays pretty steady, I will say that. But sometimes you don't have any deals until, October, and sometimes you get a ton in February and see a big gap. And but she's been steady, and she networks really well, and she markets really well. I thought originally that, after 2 or 3 years, I would get into real estate as well at that time when we bought it, because I thought, oh, this would be kind of cool. And I'm glad I didn't. But she's been a huge impact on the community, I think. She's really involved with a lot of nonprofits. A big one she has a heart for is called Furniture Share. And Furniture Share of Albany, it's really cool. They give furniture to people who don't have furniture. And there's something called furniture poverty that you probably don't even think about. Let's say that you're low income and you finally get an apartment or finally get a house, and you don't have any money to furnish it. So you're sitting on the floor or on plastic furniture, and you're eating off of paper plates and stuff like that. And they provide a way for people to have, beds and furniture, and it's great. So she really loves that one, among other ones. So, but yeah, the real estate thing has been great. It's kind of funny. We did it together. We're partners, but I don't do anything. It's not my deal. It's really her thing. And at first, when she used to say, hey, my company or whatever, I'm like, hey, it's our company. And I'm like, no, what? It's not ours. I mean, it's kind of, but it's yours. It's your baby. So I had to like eat my pride a little bit. I was like, you know what? What am I doing? I don't do anything here. My wife's amazing. She does a great job. So that's her deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great stuff. And then I've been in the solar business for about 15 years. Yeah. And a few years ago, I was talking to one of my competitors who didn't own a company, but he was running another solar company and here in the Valley. And him and I were talking, and we were good friends. And I'm not usually good friends with my competitors, I'll tell you that. I'm pretty easygoing, happy, jovial guy, but I am really competitive too. So I was like, I'm not best buddies with these guys. And then my best friend Travis, him and I were working for the same company. I was running the solar division for them, and he was doing electrical estimating and helping me out with solar stuff. And we all came together late 2020 and started putting together a business plan. And so then 3 years ago in 2021, we just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary. We started our own solar company. And it's solar installation and sales. We do the whole thing. We don't really have a lot of subcontractors, if any. So we have a sales team, we have an office team, we have electricians, apprentices, and then we have solar, like I call them the roof guys, the rackers and installers. So all together, I think there's 27 of us now. So it's really grown.
27?
27.
Wow.
I know.
'Cause 2020 is you and a guy.
Yeah.
And now you have 27.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Wow.
But it is incredible. We love it. Obviously, there's stressful times. We try to tamper that down. But it's a great way to have an impact on many people's lives and to provide jobs. And we try to provide a really affordable, as far as solar goes, good value. So my take on it is, you want to make profit, obviously, because without cash flow, it's hard to run a business. But, as long as you're making decent margins, and I would rather, even if I could raise my prices, probably. In fact, I know I could. But every time we get a new customer, to me, I have a new referral partner.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at that. So, and there's a lot of out-of-state companies who are trying to get in the space or have been in the space, and they knock on your doors. And I mean, there's a lot of door knocking companies. I don't really. That's not my thing. I don't care for that.
Yeah.
So we just try to be a local legacy company, and we're doing well. We do a lot of commercial stuff besides residential. I have several projects at Oregon State. We're currently in the middle of building. We do a lot of farms.
Wow.
We put a system on Salem Alliance.
Really?
Yeah. Did a couple years ago. So
you are big time, man.
Yeah.
What if, we bought a house about a year and a half ago that already had solar on it.
Yeah.
I don't know this company. I mean, it's just, I don't feel like I know anything about it. Yeah. And I don't like that. I'd rather work with a guy like you that I buy from, who can educate me, who I can call.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I can call Matthew and go, hey, tell me about my solar.
Yeah, that's tough. It is tough. And you've got a lot of people who are in these long-term financial obligations where there's ways to do with it. They're not like that. I mean, so it should be saving you money, especially with rates going up.
I have no idea if it's saving. I know nothing about it.
Okay, I'll come over and take a look for you. But rates this year in PGE went up 17%.
Okay.
And they're supposed to do the same in Pacific Power next year. But
that's crazy.
It's not going to stop. The grid's kind of tired. The grid's old. And we are moving to electricity-based everything.
Yeah.
Battery.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, it seems like that's what's happening. So,
people always talk about, what if the whole grid goes down and we have no electricity? Then what?
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a bigger problem than just you don't have any electricity. There's other issues going on.
Yeah. So most of the solar people don't have battery storage. So if your power goes out, your power goes out. I mean, it's mostly it's either a savings tool for your electricity wise, or if you're more along the lines of environmental, then that's something that people we have people who just do it for environmental impacts. But without batteries, it's not a great tool for you. So we have batteries now. You can get batteries to help you with backup loads, keep you ticking for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's become much more of a more recent type of situation. We didn't used to do many batteries. Now it's quite a bit of our business includes that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like business is going well for you. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, business has been good. Business has been really good. We're definitely blessed.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to wind down a little bit and wrap up here in a moment. But
Okay.
You turned 50 recently.
Yes.
And so I thought we're going to tie this up with 50 and fasting. We talked about working out a little bit, but
Yeah.
what, when you turned 50, what was the revelation that you had? What was, I don't know, how'd you feel? Was it weird? And then talk to me about fasting.
The 50 thing, it is interesting. I think I made a decision a few years ago. I wanted the second half of my life to be better than the first half as far as physically. Like, dude, you got to take care of yourself. I mean, I still hold some extra pounds, but, I was getting pretty big. So it's one of those things, right? It's like you have to make some decisions. And I had a doctor tell me one time, even if you're going to be a little fat, you need to work out. So I try to make sure that 3-4 times a week at least I'm doing something.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the 50 thing, I think it brings into light many things. You kind of look and go, what is my legacy? What am I doing? How am I impacting people? And for me, I think a specific thing more recently has been I need to be sharing my faith more and just look for specific situations, and living my faith. So I've become a little more bold more recently.
Give me an example.
I talked to a kid at the bank the other day, and we were just chatting about something, and I didn't know that if he was a believer, if he was a Christian or what his situation was. And so I started bringing it up. So I'm like, hey, did you go to church on Easter? Yeah. I said, do you love Jesus? He goes, yeah. I go, oh, it's so good to know. But in the old days, I might not even have asked, and then that opens up I think as a believers, a lot of times we kind of stifle it until we find out someone else is a Christian, and suddenly the room opens up and you start talking about stuff. Another time I had a kid come out, he was a garage door company, and as a kid I've done business with for a long time. I go, hey, how's the wife? He goes, I'm going through a divorce. So I talked to him about praying with I said, I know that, this one's done, but if you get married again, this is what I do. I pray with my wife. And he's like, that opened up a can of worms to talk about faith and just little things like that. And I have a harder, I didn't used to even say that stuff. So I think I would live in a good way that I felt like was, an impactful, whether it be giving to people or just being, generous with my time or what have you. And treating people well. I try to treat everyone well. I don't care what you're believing or what your political stance is.
You don't care about politics?
I'm staying, what's funny about that is like more and more, no, I'm just out.
It doesn't save anybody, by the way.
It doesn't save anyone, and I don't even know what to believe anymore, so I don't even worry about it. Yep. And that's the big thing too, worry. No worry. I'm taking the worry out of my life, so. Yeah, so I think 50 has brought a couple revelations together with that.
Good.
As far as fasting goes, I didn't even know much about it besides, in the Bible, you'd see people fast here and there. And in 2020, impactful year for many, right?
Yes.
I kept seeing this ad on Facebook, and this guy named Joel Staley. It was called Shed Fat Fast. And I was like, what is this thing? And I made an appointment, and I didn't know much about it, but we got into, basically it's an accountability
group. Is he a local guy?
No, he lives in Nebraska.
Okay.
But I've met him. We've actually, it's kind of cool. So he had this program that's like, if you can gain weight, why can't you lose weight? If people, why can't we lose weight in a different way? And it's about health, and he has a lot of workout stuff too. But I never really looked into it much. What are the benefits of fasting? So I studied it. So I did this program, and in 3 months, I dropped 50 pounds.
Seriously?
It was aggressive. It was aggressive fasting, not just 24-hour OMADs, they call it, what have you.
Yeah, OMAD, yeah.
But we would do 48 hours, then to 72. You'd eat a meal and go to 72. And it's fine. You find it interesting. And I still continually am always, for me, I'm a roller coaster. I'm like, oh, I'll gain a few pounds and I can fast it off type of thing, which is maybe a little dangerous, but
it is dangerous. As a 50-something, I know.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really impactful. Physically, I had a lot more mental clarity. I had a couple skin tags on my neck, and they disappeared.
Really?
I saw major physical changes, like some good or I should say auto. They call it autophagy.
Autophagy, yeah.
A lot of stuff with with my body changed in a good way. So I've continued to do that. I'm always trying to lose weight, it seems like. That's the problem, right? We have this mental block, and I know that's more about my habits and what have you, but...
Let's talk just for... Yeah. You and I are a lot alike, man, because I have 50-some years of bad habits, and I love sugar. That's my addiction is sugar. I love fasting as well, and I do OMAD pretty well, one meal a day, or a 16-8 fast, and I like doing that. I've done a 36-hour fast. I've never gone beyond that, so I'd love to maybe have some accountability. It'd be cool if you and I got a hold of Joel, this guy, and do it for 90 days or whatever. I need the accountability because on my own, I won't do it. Yeah, it's tough. So what is your nemesis that causes you not to lose the weight that you want? What did you learn during when you're with this guy? Is there a food? Is it a lack of exercise? What is it that? It's definitely food, or I think eating when no one else is around. I think that would be my biggest thing. And it's not sugar. It's just like I'm kind of a snacker. I'm more of a grazer. I won't eat the biggest meal, but I'll want to eat a meal and like a couple hours later eat more. But I also think it's just a mental, habitual thing. You know, if you've read Atomic Habits, or if you know Love that book. All those things about the consistency of small things, instead of like trying to say, oh, I've got to do, you know, like for people who say, I started working out in January, right? And then they're like, I can't work out for an hour a day. Well, you don't have to work out an hour a day. Can you do 10 minutes? You know, people don't want to think like that. They want an all or nothing type of situation. Yep. They want to get rich quick kind of thing. Yep. So for me, it's always like I lose some weight and then I slowly put it back on. In February, when I turned 50, since then I've been able to, you know, drop 20 pounds doing fasting again, because I know it works. I know it's good for me. But it is, I think that the mental part of it is really what it is. Physically, I could do it. The longest fast I've done is 110 hours. How many days is that? It's like 5 days. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. No, it's incredible. When does the autophagy begin to work? I hear it's like after 24 hours. 24 hours is the key. Like currently right now I'm in a 48-hour fast. I ate last night and I don't plan on eating until tomorrow night. And that's the problem. Don't plan on eating. So I get weak in the morning or noon on that second day. The hardest day is to get past 24. The hardest thing. Tonight will be the hardest for me. Once you get past it tomorrow morning, you're like, not so bad. Not so bad. I struggle at night because I've gone 24 hours and I see my wife's having a nice meal and maybe I'm a playing victim and poor me, gosh, I'll probably die. I know. Well, you lose your self-control at night, right? Totally. I'm like, you get tired. Screw it, I'm eating. I literally do. Yeah. But I will say honestly, and going back and you think about it, the thing that my biggest problem is if you don't go to bed at a decent hour and you stay up, you might as well just throw in the towel, because that's where it's at. That's where, when I say eating when people aren't around, my wife goes to bed 9 o'clock. And if I'm up by myself watching TV or anything for an hour, hour and a half, it's like, that's probably where I've gained all my weight. You know what I mean? It's just like that late night stuff. So anyway. I hang around with guys that they do a good job about creating boundaries where they never eat after 7 p.m. And so mentally, I know that's in my brain. And so I try not to eat after 7. Yeah. But oftentimes we're eating dinner at 7 or after. So, but I try not to, but that's definitely a challenge. You and me should do some accountability fasting. I think we should. I'd be totally down for it, man. Because I've lost 30 pounds from my peak to where I'm at now, but I'm like stuck. And there's something in my brain that says, I can't do it. Yeah. I don't know what it is. But, you know, in high school and college, I wrestled like around 142. Mm-hmm. The highest I ever weighed was like 211. So I'm confessing how fat I am. Got down to around 180, 185. That's kind of where I'm at. But I need to be at 160. I need to drop 20 more pounds to really feel good. So, hey, I'm in. I need to get down to where you're at. See, so my highest I was at was almost 280. What do you weigh right now? I'm at 240. Okay. What's perfect for you? I mean, I haven't seen 200 in so many years. How tall are you? I'm 5'10". Okay, so 200 would that be? I mean, I have a lot of muscles, buddy, but besides. I know. We just, lots of muscle, baby. Yeah, I haven't been 200. I mean, I think I was right when I was dating my wife 25 years ago. And I always tease that I gained 10 pounds on that honeymoon cruise that I've never taken off. Yep. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So it's like, I believe it, man. I would love to be down 190, 200. And maybe, or have my 185, 190 and 200 be my red line. Like, no way can you get above that. I have a favorite question I love to ask people. Whenever they're struggling with something, I can do it to other people, but it doesn't necessarily work on me. So I would say, hey, Matthew, in 90 days, if I were to give you $1 million on the 91st day, could you get to 200 pounds?
Oh, yeah.
And so all of a sudden you go, well, you can do it. See, that trigger, it helps you to make a decision that I can do it. And so think about that. 91 days, if in 90 days you can get down to 200 pounds, that's 40 more pounds, would you do it?
Now I'm feeling kind of challenged.
Think about that, because I think...
What will you give me 90 days? That's why I'm scared.
I don't know if I'll give you $1 million. I'll buy you a coffee, take you out for breakfast.
Okay.
We'll do a breakfast.
Maybe a celebratory breakfast.
There you go. But what's the motivation? Because people, I can't do this. Like, if I gave you $1 million, could you? Well, yeah, I could. Oh, so you can do it. You're just not choosing to do it. So
for me, it's health. It is a health thing. It's like, I know that.
Okay.
I know that's the biggest thing. Anything. If you look at anything that happens.
Yeah.
Anything like, well, what's your weight? It's always about like technically I'm obese. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't feel that way, but I know that I've got way more weight than I'm supposed to.
Yeah. I don't know. My BMI is like 28 or 29%.
I don't know what it is. I'm afraid to look.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think it's, for me, it's health and longevity, and I'm going to have grandkid, and
yeah, it's right.
And I want to be with my wife as long as I can. I mean, I want to have an impact on this world as long as I can. So
you mentioned a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you ever read the book Halftime? I can't think of his name, but a book called Halftime, Christian book. It's basically you and I looking at our life, football game. Maybe you're winning the first half or you're losing the first half, but you go in the locker room at halftime and you make some adjustments.
I like that.
So you're at halftime. I mean, chances are you won't live to 100, but
I'm a little over halftime probably.
Yeah, who knows? Only God knows.
I'm in the third quarter.
Yeah. Right? Third quarter, into third quarter, we don't know.
Right.
So, but at halftime, what adjustments do you need to make from the first half to the second half? And that's a great book.
Sounds like a great book.
I read this book. My wife and I were on our number 24 of our anniversary, and we were in the Dominican Republic. And I clearly remember reading this book. I'd read early in the morning when my wife's still sleeping, and so it's my favorite time to read my Bible or a book.
Right.
But halftime, that was really convicting for me at year 24. Now it's 32 years. But really, time is short. If we're beyond halftime, what do we want to do different? If you want to leave a legacy, what does that look like? Right. Begins today.
No, that's incredible.
So, well, brother, we're going to wrap up, man.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
You bet. It's been great.
Love hanging out with you.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, let's do the fast thing.
Yeah, I'm serious. Let's get this done.
I'm all in.
Okay.
So, well, thanks to you guys for listening each week. We really hope and pray that the stories that we hear each week encourage and inspire you, and just to live out the life that you should be living. And because we had the podcast with Matthew, we're going to quote Matthew 6:33. This is my verse I'll leave you with, is seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Now, I'll just leave you with this. There's lots of things to seek, but God says to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. So what if we lived life that way? Secondly, I would ask you to subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel. Let's get these stories out, and let's impact the world one testimony at a time. So thanks very much for listening this week. Matthew, thank you for being a part of our podcast. We appreciate you, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll do it again.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe in 6 months after we lose the weight, we show up and do this again.
Let's do it.
We did it.
I love it. Let's do it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Take care.